right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are making some good progress on the map here with the DARWIN200 team on board the Oosterschelde. Let me share my screen, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So just bear with me for a second, and it should come up. Here we go. Perfect. So there we go. We are getting really close to Cape Town in South Africa. If I back up a little bit, you can see we have left most of the Atlantic in our wake. There was our little stop in South Georgia, starting in the Falklands. If we go back even further in time, you can see this massive track we made as we made our way from Christchurch in New Zealand all the way across the Pacific. So the last few months, the DARWIN200 team has been doing a lot of sailing. We have covered a large portion of the globe. Believe it or not, our epic 2-year journey is getting close to coming to an end. By July of this year, we will be back in Falmouth, and the DARWIN200 expedition will be completed. But not to worry, we still have several months of really cool content coming your way, including several weeks where we will be in Cape Town, in South Africa, and we will be doing all kinds of live events from the field. So we should have lots of really fun content for you. Before we leave Cape Town, we make our way up through St. Helena, Ascension, the Azores, and then eventually back to Falmouth in July. I'm going to click our little icon here, which is going to give us some camera stuff. So let's go back in time a little bit and see what's been going on. I love this because they can upload pictures and videos in real time from WhatsApp right onto our expedition map. So you can see here on one of the calmer days, they were getting a little lesson in how to use a sextant. So a little lesson in navigation here from the crew for some of the passengers. And if we back up a little bit more, this is a pretty cool picture. You can see some of those rough seas that they had for several days. You can see how high the seas were. The Oosterschelde is at quite an angle here, and you can see nothing but a wall of ocean in behind them. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, let's go on board the ship right now. I'm going to stop this screen share. We've got Josh waiting for us down below. Josh, how you doing?
Hello, everybody.
All right.
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. No worries, Josh. I know we're on board a ship. There's people finishing their lunch.
Yeah.
We're going to hear people in the background. It's not the first time, so no big deal. All right, Josh, we'll catch us up. It's been a while since we've connected. We had Grant join us last week and share some of the birds that he was seeing. He talked about the video that he's making. I know you're involved in helping, I think, with some of that video footage. So, you know, what's the last week been like?
The last week has been better. It's been a much easier week. We definitely had a rough start, some really rough seas and difficult conditions on board. But the closer we've been getting to Cape Town, the weather's been warming up a lot. It's been a lot nicer to be outside. And yeah, we finally had some calm days coming our way. So that's really nice to experience. It's getting to about 20 to 25 degrees Celsius now. So it's crazy to think that 2.5 weeks ago we had people up the front on iceberg watch, and now we're upstairs in t-shirt and shorts all day. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's changed pretty quickly. I'm glad you've had some better weather. I know the crossing was really fast to get to South Georgia, and then I know you had some rough seas after that, but it's nice that you're being rewarded as you basically a day and a half, and you'll be rolling into Cape Town.
Yeah, day after tomorrow in the morning we're supposed to arrive.
Awesome. Well, tell us about wildlife. Have you had any wildlife encounters in the last week?
Yeah, well, since we left South Georgia, things have been pretty slow. The odd distant whale blow here and there, and then yesterday or day before yesterday or something, someone spotted a whale blow off the side of the ship, which is quite exciting anyway. And we all thought, oh, humpback whale, fin whale, kind of whale, relatively often, and have seen along the voyage. But once we got the drone up and started filming it, it was very obvious that it was a sperm whale, and it was the first sperm whale that we've seen on the whole voyage. And it was super close to the ship, like a couple of 100 meters away from the ship. Oh, but yeah, you've got the footage up there.
Yeah.
So that was really nice to see. Yeah, really cool animal, and they dive down to sort of usually about 1,000 meters up to 3,000 meters, and then they'll come up and hang out on the surface for 15-20 minutes before they go and dive again. So we were super lucky that this one just happened to be taking its breather right as we were passing by. and then we saw it go down. I think after this shot, you'll see the tail go underwater again, and then that's it, going to dive down into the pitch black deep ocean to hunt squid. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's great. We've had great footage of humpback whales, the fin whale at the beginning of the journey, blue whales down in Chile, in the fjords. So really cool to see that sperm whale, and hopefully some southern right whales in the next few days as we're around the South Africa area.
Yes, yeah, we did have a southern right, I think, before we came into South Georgia, but just one. So on this leg alone, we've seen 5 different species of whales, which is incredible.
Yeah, very cool. So you're going to be in Cape Town shortly. And then what does life look like for you, Josh, once you're in Cape Town?
Well, we've got a couple of days still hanging out on the ship. The guests don't disembark the ship until a few days into April. And then I've got a few days off to get my land legs back and enjoy eating at restaurants and just wandering around Cape Town, exploring, catching up with some editing work. And then I think on the 12th, the Darwin Leader Weeks start. And then we've got 2 of those in a row. So I think the first week I'm working with Cape vultures, which is really cool. I've actually bought myself a new camera specifically for this project. So I'm looking forward to getting that. And then I'm not sure what's in store for me in the second week, but I have no doubt it's going to be something really cool again. Cape Town seems to have some really cool projects going on.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think we're going to let you go in a minute, Josh, and continue with your day. It'll be great to see you in Cape Town. Hopefully we can get out in the field together and maybe do some live stuff in classrooms. That'll be pretty cool. Yeah, I know you're down right now, but would it be too difficult to pop your head out the hatchback there and give us a view, or are you tied down?
It's very windy and very sprayy and stuff upstairs. So I think it's probably best that we stay downstairs for today, I'm afraid.
All right. We'll keep your computer safe today.
Yeah.
You won't need to go on deck. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, Josh.
Cool. Well, it's nice to catch up with you, Joe.
Yeah, always great to connect. Enjoy the last couple days, and then we'll see you in Cape Town in a bit.
Yep, see you soon.
Awesome.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Josh.
Bye-bye.
All right. Very cool. So a little connection there with Oosterschelde. They are very close to Cape Town. Then Josh will get a little bit of downtime, which is nice. I'm sure he'll be working on the leg video as well. So maybe we'll share that video as well at some stage and see kind of what that leg looked like, what the journey looked like from the Falklands to South Georgia and then onwards as we made our way to Cape Town. So just a little heads up, in about 2 weeks from now, I will be heading to Cape Town. So that's going to change about 2 or so weeks worth of the world's most exciting classroom. So the timing might change a little bit because we're going to try and do some stuff live in South Africa. The dates might change, so it might not be the usual Thursday, just depending on what's going on. And we may do a series of really small live events where we go live, maybe from a penguin colony, maybe from a cage dive, looking for sharks. So we'll see what happens. And as these 2 weeks pass and more things become more concrete, I will send you more details so you know what is going on. All right, so we just left a 100 or so year old historic tall ship, 3-masted schooner in the Atlantic Ocean. Now we're going to switch gears to a very different crossing that's going to happen very shortly. And we are going to meet the incredible all-female team, which will be making an attempt at crossing the Pacific. So they're aiming to become the first crew to row 8,000 miles across the Pacific nonstop and unsupported. And this will begin as soon as April 1st, maybe. They're in Peru right now, making sure the boat is ready, doing some training as they prepare for this crossing for Australia. So we have Miriam and Jess joining us for a voyage that will see them maybe rowing 15 hours a day and possibly taking 6 months. So let's grab them from backstage and bring them in. Hey, Miriam. Hey, Jess. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good. It's great to have you joining us live from Peru today.
No, thank you for having us.
Of course. Where in Peru are you?
We're close to Lima, so we're near an area called Callao, and the sort of beach front is called La Punta. We're currently sitting at Yacht Club Peruano, which is actually where the Kon-Tiki expedition started from all those years ago.
Okay, very cool. I just finished reading a very beat up old paperback of the Raw expeditions, which obviously was in a different ocean, but very cool related to that journey. Yeah. And yeah, the Oosterschelde, the tall ship, we were in Lima at one point. That was way back last May. And then we headed to Salinas before we went to Galapagos, which is obviously, if you're following Darwin's Voyage, is a pretty important spot to visit and spend a little time. But, you know, Jess and Miriam, this is our first time connecting, hopefully with classrooms over the next 4, 5, 6 months or so. We'll be doing some connections from the ocean, but it'd be great just to get to know the two of you a bit. If you want to take a moment, just introduce yourselves. Tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm Miriam, and I met Jess when we rowed across the Atlantic Ocean about 2 years ago now it was. Yeah. So I rowed across solo and Jess rowed across as a 4. And then afterwards we were kind of twiddling our thumbs and got a bit bored with land life and figured we needed a bigger challenge.
All right. I know this is like crossing the Atlantic. I know that there's, I'm just blanking on the name of what it is. It's kind of a big event every year. Was that what it was? Part of that event?
Yeah, so it was previously called the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. It's now been renamed the World's Toughest Row. And it's a race that happens every year. About 40 boats from La Gomera in the Canary Islands to Antigua in the Caribbean. So it's becoming quite popular, actually. And you can race either as a solo, pair, trio, 4 or 5. But the crossing that we're doing across the Pacific is a completely independent expedition, and it's not an organized race at all.
Yeah, amazing. A friend of mine recently, we covered his expedition. His name's Erden, and he did a crossing from California to the Philippines solo, which was, I think he was the first to do it north, entirely north of the equator, which was pretty cool. Yeah, so he had a pretty epic journey. I imagine, you know, to prepare for this, that you've been talking to a lot of people, getting advice, getting to know that part of the ocean. I imagine there's a lot of kind of homework that has to be done before you can do this. Yeah,
we've done a load of RYA courses. So that's essential navigation, first aid, VHF radio, sea survival. We've also gone and done hydraulics courses, electronics courses, further first aid. We've spent lots of time getting to know our boat really well and doing on-water training back in the UK before our boat was shipped here. It has been non-stop outside of our full-time jobs.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I've got a few little clips here. I pulled a few training clips from the folder that was shared with me earlier. So I'm going to play a few clips. And maybe you can just kind of talk in general about some of the training. So let me bring up a few of them here.
Oh, so this is looking at Hartlepool on the North Sea.
I thought you were enjoying it.
Cold up there, wasn't it? And we actually had no mattresses for the first half of our training. We were just on really thin camping mats. So we're really excited. We've got proper mattresses for the Pacific. And we used to see a seal in the same spot every time we'd go out, and we've called him Alan.
All right, I've got a couple more clips I'll play here, but I want to ask a question because we've been lucky enough to host a few people who have made various crossings, and there's kind of different techniques. Obviously, you've chosen to train and prepare a little bit, and I know there's some who just decide just to go out and kind of get their body in shape as they're going. So I'm wondering, you know, why you thought the training was important for this one.
I think mostly to prevent injury and you know, be as strong as possible. We've been trying to put on a load of muscle before going, because we know that we're going to lose quite a lot of weight. We've been doing a lot of hours on the rowing machine in the gym, and also lots of weight training. So it's really just trying to prepare your body for sitting in the same position and just, you know, the same movement day in, day out, because we won't actually be standing up really, other than moving from the rowing seat to the cabin. So you kind of lose your calf muscles, and stepping on land after our Atlantic row, it took about a week to get used to being on land again. And, you know, certain parts of your body do hurt a bit.
All right. So anybody who's tuning in with us via the chat, don't be shy if you want to start to send in some questions as we're having our discussion. I'll see them coming in and I can work some of those questions in. But I want to talk a little bit now about, you know, you're in Peru now. It's getting down to go time. But you had to get the ship here, or the boat here in the first place. So I've got a few little clips of the boat arriving. Do you want to talk a little bit about the process of getting the boat from, I imagine it was the UK, down to Peru?
Yeah, I think it had probably been easier to row here. Yeah, there's quite a lot of bureaucracy in Peruvian customs. So this day was just, it was incredible. We'd waited about 12 days for the boat to arrive and been on meetings every day with customs, and the British ambassador was helping, and yeah, there was all sorts going on.
Yeah, I learned my lesson years ago when I sent a satellite unit to Peru. And it was a customs nightmare for months and months trying to get it back. So yes, I can imagine a whole rowing boat would be challenging, would be complicated.
It's definitely been tricky, and our food also arrived in a separate container yesterday after it had been here for 3 weeks. So we were pretty worried all of our chocolate will have melted, being, you know, sat in the sunshine in its container. But thankfully, it does all seem okay.
Yeah, tell us a bit about the food. You know, what will you be eating? How many calories? You know, you're going to be rowing a lot, so you're going to need a lot of energy.
Yeah, we're going to be on about 5,000 calories a day. So 3,000 of those calories are going to be split into 3 1,000 calorie ration packs. So I don't know if anybody knows, but they're expedition food, so it's mainly dehydrated. You top it up with some hot water, let it rehydrate, and then start eating it. And then the snack packs are more normal things like you'd get at home. So maybe protein bars, fruit and nut mixes, some chocolate, some biscuits. It's actually really hard to get the calories in. So some of it doesn't seem the healthiest, but it's just a case of getting calories in, because we're having the amount of snacks that you would have as your daily calorie intake. It does get quite hard when you're rowing, and it's quite hard to digest when you don't get a lot of break to digest everything. So yeah, we'll certainly miss some fresh food, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll try and take as much fruit as we can for the first week on the boat as a treat, if we can fit it on board.
Yeah, absolutely. After a few weeks, that's going to be non-existent. So water is something that often students are curious about. I know some rowing expeditions will bring a bunch of water as ballast, and that's what they'll use. Sometimes there's desalinators. So what are you using on this one?
Yeah, so we have got a desalinator on the boat. So it's mounted inside one of the deck hatches, and it pulls in seawater through the central through hole of the boat, and it makes about 30 litres of drinking water per hour. We've also got, if that goes wrong, we've got a spare pump so we can fix it. We've also got a hand pumping water maker desalinator as well. And as another backup, we will take a few bottles of emergency drinking water.
All right, good stuff. Okay, I've got another little clip here. This is actually looking at the boat itself. So maybe we can talk a little bit about your home for potentially the next 6 months. Let me just make sure I picked the right clip. There it is. Okay, here it comes.
Yeah, so you can see that's the deck, that's the bow cabin that we're looking at now. The bow cabin can actually fit our oars in. It's over 3 meters long. And then at the back, the blue cabin is the stern cabin, which is probably the one this one here that we'll be swapping in and out of. You can sleep in both. There'll be mattresses in both. But in the stern cabin, which is the back cabin, that's where all of the navigation equipment will be. The radio, the chart plotter, everything that you need to know exactly where you're going and to route plan. Also the batteries, the lithium batteries are kept in there, which are powered by the solar panels, which you can see the big black squares on the top of the cabins. So we'll probably do a rolling shift pattern. Ideally, we'd always have one of us on the oars keeping the boat moving forward. So switching out of the stern navigation cabin for route planning is essential.
Yeah. Okay, that was going to be my next question is, would you always be rowing together, or would there be times where maybe one would be on and the other would be having a rest? And then I imagine you have a sea anchor as well, which I know, if you both need a rest or the weather's kind of a little bit rough, you can kind of put in that in the water, helps keep you on course.
Yeah, they're not very fun to be on, the sea anchors, the power anchors. For anybody that doesn't know, they're like essentially a massive parachute on about 70 meters of line. And we'll use that, if the wind's in the wrong direction, or if it's too dangerous to be on deck. It's a bit like being inside a tumble dryer though, when you're on, or more of a washing machine, because the cabins are usually a little bit damp. So not very fun, but they are, if that happens, we'll both use a chance to bunker down and get some good rest and then go from there.
Yeah. So you've both experienced the Atlantic in a bit of a different situation, more of an organized event, more in one case solo, one case part of a foursome. So how do you anticipate that this journey is going to be different? And how are you preparing? Maybe we've talked about the physical, but what about the mental for this journey?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's been a big difference is that it's just so long, and it's really hard to prepare and think about, because when you start to think about even spares kits, you're like, oh, well, do I need 30 spare wheel bearings, or do I need 40? And it's really hard to think what could go wrong over that time. And there really is, compared to the Atlantic, it is just more isolating. But I think mentally at this point, because it's been such hard work to get to the start line and there's been so many bumps in the road, we are just really excited to get out there and switch off from all the chaos of the world. And but it is a process, and your resilience definitely builds throughout all of this, which I think is the cool thing about ocean rowing. And I'm sure there's going to be times when we're really down, but also there's going to be times when it's really incredible. But I think one of the things we'll be doing to look after our minds a bit is have little milestone treats. So maybe every 1,000 miles we'll have something as a little pick-me-up, or we might try and do like a treat Friday, and we have some of our nicer snacks then, or something just to look forward to and get you to work towards a bit.
Yeah, that sounds great. Are you going to have enough battery power to be able to have some music on board? I know I would definitely enjoy having some music while I was pulling all day long.
Yeah, hopefully. So for our Atlantic boats, we had 2 lithium batteries. This time we have decided to take a third one on board, which stays on a maintenance charge as a backup. We've also got a fuel cell, which we can use to charge the batteries in an emergency if they get really low, and that's powered with methanol. But so the answer is yes, we do hope that we've got enough power for music. We've actually got onboard speakers, and then we've got little ones that we can just charge, as well as headphones as well.
All right, excellent. I've got another clip here. This looks like some training. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the training that's happening here in this video.
That was actually my first sailing lesson. It's funny, I've crossed an ocean, but I've never sailed before. So while we've been in Peru, we've been lucky to meet some really incredible people. And we met a chap called Percy, who's one of the last few traditional sailors left in Peru. There's very few, and it's a bit of a dying art, really, sadly. And there's not many of these rafts are made out of balsa wood, a bit like Kontiki was. And there's not many of them left. So it was really incredible to sort of have our first proper go at sailing in the most traditional way possible.
All right. And then I have one more picture here that I want to share. I think, although you do mention that it will be the 2-person team, but it looks like you're going to have a little bit of company on board. Oops, why didn't that come up? Let me try that again. There we go.
Paddington in Peru, that's our team mascot. So that was given to us by my dad, who's actually out here helping us. And it's just quite fitting having Paddington from Peru being based out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect mascot to have, leaving from Peru with you to kind of help you along that journey. That's great.
We're just trying to figure out whether we keep Paddington outside and cable tie him on, or we put him in the cabin.
Ooh, yeah. I guess it depends what you want Paddington to look like at the end of the journey. Yeah. I think he'll definitely be a little worse for wear after 6 months, but that could be kind of cool. Paddington, a hardcore adventure explorer after that journey.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to follow along. We'll be hopefully doing some events throughout the journey, some connections with classrooms, sharing the expedition, the highs, the lows, which I'm sure there'll be a lot of both. So when you do embark on the journey, I think you said you have some family and friends down there, so you'll have a little, a little party seeing you off as you're leaving.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to have a little send-off party a couple of days before we leave. We've made so many friends out here, and we've been so lucky with how much help everybody's given us. And then I think there's going to be quite a lot of boats sailing out or motoring out with us as we leave. There's a little island about 4 kilometers away, so they'll probably come up to that point depending on how slow we are with all of our food on the boat. It's going to be a nice send-off.
All right, that leads me to a final question here in the chat. You're a small boat on a big ocean with big cargo vessels and things like that, so what kind of things can you do to be visible or maybe warn a big ship if it's close?
Yeah, so at night we'll always have our navigation light on. We've also got our AIS alarm, so that will alert us if there's any vessels in the passing vicinity. We can radio them up and say, look, we're here. Because we are so small and got such a low profile, even if you're right next to them, we are very hard to see. So we'll also have flares as well, and a few different options for that. So hopefully it all goes well and we can avoid the shipping lanes. The start is going to be quite busy because we're right next to a big port as well. We're going to have to be quite careful the first 24, 48 hours. But hopefully we can get out of that quite quickly.
All right, excellent. Well, Jess and Miriam, great to connect with you in Peru. We hope to have many exciting connections from across the ocean, and of course a big connection down under. Congrats on everything, the preparation. This isn't an easy thing to do, from an idea to sponsors to kit to prep to training, but the boat is there. It's in Peru and you're days away, so it must be getting pretty exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the next few days, and hopefully the next time we see you and it's a lot bluer, whether it's the sky, the ocean, and everything in between. Thanks so much.
Can't wait.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. All right. Very cool to meet Jess and Miriam. We'll host them through some Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants events. And if the timing works, maybe we'll have them join us in another World's Most Exciting Classroom event as well. So we still have lots to do before we wrap up for today. We've got to take a look at our experiment from 2 weeks ago. We have a brand new experiment we're going to share with you as well. Then we're going to have our curiosities to wrap up. And in between, for weeks, I've been saying we're going to play a video sent to us from the Marine National Aquarium in Plymouth. But we've run out of time. I think this week we might be able to fit it in. They made a really cool video for us looking at seagrasses. So I think we're going to have time to squeeze that in today. We were hoping to connect with Jamal today in Belize, and he was going to talk to us about the work he does with manatees. But unfortunately, he got pulled out into the field. So he messaged me late last night, said he wasn't going to make it. So we're going to reschedule and have Jamal join us maybe in the next couple of weeks for one of the world's most exciting classroom events. But still pretty cool. We got to connect to Josh out off the coast of Africa, Jess and Miriam in Peru about to start their ocean crossing. But let's take a look at our experiment from 2 weeks ago. I am going to share this video and we'll take a look at the results. I believe they're right here. Yep, perfect. So let's take a look at the results from the lava lamp experiment.
Welcome back, everyone. How did you get on making your very own lava lamp? Could you work out why the oil and the water don't mix? And what creates this amazing effect of these bubbles of water rising up through the oil? The oil is lighter than the water, so it floats above the water. And because the water is denser, it sinks down to the bottom. And because they have different densities and viscosities, the oil and the water don't mix, as you can see very clearly with my green lava lamp. The water is down here at the bottom, the oil is up here at the top. The tablet releases bubbles of carbon dioxide, which rise up to the top, carrying water with them. When the bubbles of carbon dioxide burst on the surface, the denser water then sinks back down to the bottom. The more tablets you put in, the more the process continues, causing your lava lamp to continually mix the water and the oil together. Real lava lamps are powered by a heat source, such as an incandescent bulb. But in our lava lamp, it's the bubbles that drive the movement. If you use 2 different oils in your experiment, did you notice any difference? In my experiment, I definitely noticed more movement in the vegetable oil rather than the baby oil. How did your experiment go? I'd love to see any photos of your lava lamps. Please send them in to classroom@darwin200.com.
All right. So very easy experiment. Most kitchens have oil, like a vegetable oil, an Alka-Seltzer tablet, and then a little bit of food dye. And you get that really cool lava lamp effect. There is still time to send in some photos if you tried it with your classroom or you tried it at home, to send those to Darwin or classroom@darwin200.com. There's a few questions in the chat before I share the next experiment, and I can answer some of those. So first question is when we're going to be arriving in Cape Town. Like Josh said, we're thinking it's going to be the morning of the 29th. It could be earlier, could be later. It really depends on what the weather's doing. We've got a lot of wind, or we have to motor the rest of the way. It's going to depend, kind of change that time, but sometime around the morning of the 29th is looking quite likely that arrival will be. Another question about how many people are on the ship. Well, at any given time, there's probably just over 30. So there's 20 passengers on every leg of the journey. And as each leg ends, the group leaves and a new group of passengers comes on board. There are between 3 to 4 DARWIN200 camera operators and researchers who are on board as well for each leg. And then depending on the journey, there's around 7 or 8 crew members who are on board. So it's usually around 30, just over 30 people on board the ship at any given time. And then finally, Alexis wants to know the best part about the trip so far. Well, speaking for myself, I've been able to catch up with the ship in the UK, in Rio de Janeiro, Peru, Ecuador, Galapagos, and Australia. And I think one of my favorite moments was when we were sailing in between Peru and Ecuador at night. So oftentimes during the day, dolphins will race with the ship. They'll play in the bow waves and they'll be jumping and playing in the bow waves. Sometimes they stay for a while. Sometimes it's just a really quick visit. But on this particular night, there was a lot of bioluminescence in the water. So dinoflagellates are tiny little single-celled creatures in the water. When they're disturbed as a defense mechanism, they can produce this little flash of light. It's this blue-green light, and it's beautiful. Think about millions and millions of them doing that as the ship is sailing through the water. It leaves this trail, this glowing trail in the water. But then at the front of the boat where the bow wave comes, it leaves this glowing wave, this blue-green glowing wave. And that's pretty cool on its own. But now imagine that with dolphins racing in it. So at night, you would never have known the dolphins were there because it's totally dark. But because there was this bioluminescence, the dolphins were swimming in the bow wave, and it was illuminating their bodies as they were swimming through. So it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. They stayed with us for about half an hour. And then if you looked in the distance, you could see dolphins coming to the boat, leaving a little trail, almost like a torpedo in the water, of that disturbed bioluminescence from the dinoflagellates. So that was one of the coolest things I saw on the journey. That was definitely one of my favorite moments on the journey. And then being in Australia with the crew last November was a lot of fun as well. And getting out in the field and shooting some video and doing some live events was pretty cool. Okay, let's take a look at this week's experiment. I'm going to cue it up here, and it should start playing for you right about now.
Welcome back, everyone. Have you ever dropped a chicken egg? If you have, I'm sure you've noticed how fragile they are. They're so easy to break and make a terrible mess. Well, in today's experiment, we're going to turn your normal chicken egg into a rubber egg that you can drop or even bounce. Chicken eggs have a shell made out of calcium carbonate. This is the same compound that makes up our bones. But calcium carbonate reacts with acid, so it's quite easy to remove the calcium carbonate from an egg, leaving just the yolk, the white, and the outer membranes. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this experiment. I've prepared 4 eggs, 2 are raw and 2 are hard boiled. Let's put our hard boiled eggs, which I've marked with an H, so remember which one is which, into 2 beakers, and 2 raw eggs into another 2 beakers. We then have to add an acid liquid. I've chosen white vinegar because this reacts strongly with the calcium carbonate shell of the egg. All you need to do is cover each egg. You don't have to be too precise with the amount of vinegar, but each egg must be fully submerged. Look at the little bubbles already coming off of the eggs. This is the calcium carbonate of the shell already reacting with the vinegar. I have a feeling all of these eggs are going to lose their hard shells pretty quickly. For a final step, if you want to, you can add some food colouring to turn your rubber eggs a different colour. I'm going to add a bit of red to this one, a bit of blue to this one. Give that a little mix. And this one a mix too. And let's try yellow for this one here. This is one of my uncooked eggs. Give that a quick mix. And last but not least, let's try and make this other uncooked egg green. You then have to leave all of the eggs for about 48 hours for the shell to completely dissolve. Join me in 2 weeks' time to see the results of my experiment, and let's find out if my eggs have turned into rubber eggs. Good luck in replicating this experiment, and see you next time for the results.
All right, there we go. There is your experiment to try over the next 2 weeks. Should be pretty easy to try at home or in the classroom. Food coloring, vinegar, a few eggs is really all you need to make that experiment happen. And that experiment is interesting because throughout this journey, we've talked about ocean acidification and the impact it has on calcium carbonate, like the skeletons of crustaceans and coral. So this experiment is also kind of seeing in real time what's happening in our ocean. As the levels of acid rise in our ocean, we're starting to see that calcium carbonate dissolve, and you'll see that pretty impactfully in this experiment. So you have 2 weeks to give this experiment a try. I will share the link right here, classroom@darwin200.com. Send in some pictures. We'd love to see your classrooms in action, and we just might have a gift card for your students. So there we go. That's our experiments for the week. 2 weeks, classroom@darwin200.com. You have 1 week left to try building your own terrarium. If you remember last week, we looked at 2 ways you could do it. One with a big glass jar you could buy in the store, or it could be as easy as taking something like a 2-liter soda bottle, cutting it in half, planting your terrarium, and then kind of resealing it at the top, and then kind of monitoring it and seeing how it does. So build your own terrarium was our experiment from a week ago. So you have 1 more week to send us some photos. 2 weeks for this brand new experiment. We're going to dissolve the shells, make these rubbery, bouncy eggs. Okay, so I said we can finally do this. We can finally play this video. So we've been really lucky to have Ocean Conservation Trust joining us off and on throughout our entire journey. In fact, while we were in Plymouth before we set sail, the team came on board to see the ship. We had a little send-off party at the aquarium, the National Marine Aquarium as well, in Plymouth in the UK. And then they've been doing live events. They've also been recording some videos for us as well. And so this one is specifically looking at the importance of seagrass. So we definitely saw a lot of seagrass as we've been making our way around the world. One area that really stood out was in and around Sydney Harbor. I was using the remotely operated vehicle and piloting it underwater. And we saw a lot of seagrass, and we saw some of the creatures who call that seagrass home. So let's share that little video clip before we have our curiosities of the week.
Hello, my name's Lauren and I work for the Ocean Conservation Trust here at the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth, UK. I'm part of the habitat restoration team, and it's my job, alongside everybody else, to try and save the oceans and repel the threats that it's facing. Can anyone guess what habitat that I restore? Little clue. It's under the water, it's green, and lots of marine organisms live there and have their babies there. Any guesses? What could it be? It's a seagrass bed! Woo! So, why do we spend all of our time restoring these habitats? Well, seagrass is really important for lots of different reasons, but the first one is that they are a safe place for fish to have their babies, and that means they can have their babies without predators coming in, and they can hide and be all safe and happy. They also do this thing called photosynthesis, where they take in carbon dioxide, which is a really bad gas that causes climate change, and they spit it back out again as oxygen, which all the creatures on the planet use to breathe. And that's you as well. So when you're breathing, you can be thanking the seagrass for this a little bit. Another thing is that they're really important for protecting the coastline. So basically they have roots that go underneath the seabed, and that stabilises all the sediment, it stops it swishing around. And that's really important because in climate change there's going to be more storms and more movement, so they stop that and take all the energy away, which is super important if your house is right on the edge near the sea. So the ocean is facing loads of different threats. It's really sad at the moment. So the main one is climate change, where carbon dioxide in the air is absorbed into the ocean, and that makes it warmer. It also changes the chemical composition of the ocean, and that's called, it's a really big name, but don't worry, it's called ocean acidification, and that's really bad for certain animals that have shells, because it reacts with their shells and makes them dissolve completely, so they haven't got a home anymore. It also causes a lot more storms and rain and variation in weather, and that's really bad not only for the creatures that live in the ocean, but for us as well. But don't worry, there's a hero around that's going to save our oceans. So what we're going to do is after 3, we're going to shout, "Save our oceans." Ready? 1, 2, 3. Save our oceans! Wow, it's seagrass! They're here to save the day! I'm really important because I take in all that nasty carbon dioxide and give you oxygen to breathe. Thanks, seagrass. You're welcome.
Because we're plants, we have lots of roots that keeps the seabed nice and strong and protects it against storms and floods.
all that nasty CO2 was also making our planet warmer. So the seagrass locking it in helps the fight against climate change. So I'm part of the habitat restoration team here at Blue Meadows, and it is our job to protect our heroes, the seagrass, and we do this by planting more. So the first step to growing a seagrass bed is that we have to go and collect seeds. So in the natural environment, the seagrass seeds don't turn into plants very often because of all the different threats. So what we do is we scuba dive to the bottom of the ocean, we collect lots of seagrass seeds, and then we bring them back to the National Marine Aquarium where we look after them and plant them up. So once we've collected them from the ocean, we bring them here and we put them in our seed storage unit. And we keep them in really cold, salty water to stop them from turning into plants before we're ready for them. Welcome to our lab! So when we're ready to turn the seagrass seeds into plants, we bring them out of the seed storage and we put them in our mat technology, which is a plastic crate with a coir mat and sand on top. And in each crate we plant 100 seagrass seeds. And then we take these mats, we put them on the bottom of the ocean, we take the plastic up and reuse it, and we peg in the mats. So the plants then, all their roots, go into the seabed. Another way that we regenerate our seagrass beds is we use our state-of-the-art HMS Octopus, which is an underwater seeder. And that basically means that we can take it underwater and plant all of our seeds in the seabed directly. We're working hard to try and plant as many seagrass seeds as possible, so we've got a big group of seagrass all in our ocean that can keep on fighting against climate change. Thanks for watching! But before you go, I think we should give a big thank you to seagrass for saving our oceans. Thanks, seagrass.
All right, shout out to the Ocean Conservation Trust at the National Marine Aquarium for sending us that video. And actually, it tied in really nicely today because we talked a little bit in that video about ocean acidification. Our experiment today is tied very closely to kind of what's going on with ocean acidification. So I guess it all worked out, and we played this video on the right day, even though we were maybe a little delayed in presenting it. So very cool. I'm sure we'll have a few more check-ins with the team there before the end of the journey. And of course, Falmouth is not that far from Plymouth. So I have a feeling that they'll turn up in person when we arrive back in Falmouth in July at the end of this journey. So I think that's where we are going to wrap things up for today. We still have our curiosity of the week to do. So I'm going to play last week's curiosity, and then we'll have a brand new one for you. So here we go. Here is the answer to the curiosity.
Back everyone. Last week I asked you to try and identify this fossil. Could you see any pattern? Did it remind you of anything? Well, it should do, because this is the fossil of a leaf of a fern that grew around 300 million years ago. Ferns are amongst the most ancient terrestrial plants. It was thought that they date back to around 390 million years from the present day. But recent findings suggest that they go back even further, and some ferns might date back as far as 430 million years ago. And if you look at modern ferns today, exactly the same leaf structure is present. Some species of ferns have barely changed at all over the course of hundreds of millions of years. Could you identify this fossil correctly? Did you guess that it was a fern?
Okay, there we go. That's our curiosity from a week ago. We had a lot of correct answers come in. So a big shout out to the classrooms for sending those answers in. We put those names into a draw, and then we picked one from it for a gift card. And Seven Oaks Prep is our lucky gift card recipient this week. They are in the UK, and we will get Sophie on the team to send you guys that gift card. Very cool. Thanks for trying the Curiosity. And a shout out to all the classrooms who did get it right. I think all the answers came in 100% correct. Some said fossilized plant, and then some were specific enough to say that they thought it was a fossilized fern. So great job. Here is our brand new Curiosity. It's going to play just as soon as it loads.
Back everyone. This week's Curiosity has 2 parts. Can you identify what this blue stone is called? And for the second part, can you guess what it was once used for? A clue is in the colour. Send in your best guess to classroom@darwin200.com for a chance to win an Amazon gift voucher prize. Good luck, and thank you for taking part.
All right, there's our Curiosity. We know they're stones, we know they're blue, but what are they? What were they used for? So you've got 1 week to think about that, maybe do some research online. Then we want your best guesses, classroom@darwin200.com. 2 weeks to send in an answer or some pictures for the experiment. 1 week to send in your answer for the Curiosity of the week. There we go. We're going to wrap things up a few minutes early today. I want to give a shout out to all the classrooms who joined us today, those who will be tuning into the recording later. We will see you over the next 2 weeks at the normal time. Although with the time change in the UK, it's going to be 9 o'clock Eastern, and it'll go back to 2 p.m. In the afternoon in the UK. Then there'll be a few weeks where things are going to be a little different times a day, different days in general, different lengths of time. But we will try to update you as much as we can over the next 2 weeks before I leave for South Africa. So last thing we need to do is a huge shout out to our sponsors, our supporters, our partners, without whom we wouldn't be doing this event right now. We wouldn't be sailing across the ocean about to reach South Africa. We wouldn't be training young conservation leaders, and we wouldn't be doing the science that we're doing as we make our way around the world. So hope to see everybody next week. Exciting times coming with the ship being in Cape Town, and we'll end off with a shout out to our supporters. Thanks, everyone.